Hey everyone, it's Anand from UnderdogStrength.com. And today I have the great pleasure and the great opportunity to have on my show none other than Elliott Hulse from Strength Camp. Hey Elliott,
Hey there. Thank you for having me.
well, I just want to say thank you for taking the time today. And what most people don't know is back in the day when I was getting started with my own fitness journey, I used to be really overweight. Like at one point, I used to be almost 300 pounds. And I tried to lose weight so many times, but always ended up gaining it all back. And that's when YouTube was just starting, and your channel was also pretty new back then. And for me, I was trying to find the solution. Like, why can't I lose weight? What's going on? I'm doing all this cardio, and I'm like restricting my calories, and what's going on? And fortunately, I stumbled upon your channel, and you were always talking about strength. And even though your channel wasn't like a fat loss channel, particularly,
Mhm.
it was all about strength. And I figured out that strength is the one thing that makes a difference, because
Oh
so
yeah.
many people I've seen, they try to lose weight and they don't focus on the strength aspect of it, and the
Mhm.
actual benefits that you get from strength training. So that's that. Just watching your videos was like my starting point for my own fitness journey, and eventually I lost like over 125 pounds, and I've kept
Nice.
it off for so many years.
Congratulations.
That's awesome. So let me ask you this. When you were starting out off as a strength coach yourself, did you imagine that you would, expand so much and not just talk about, physical strength? Because I know you talk about a lot of other things. Um, did you have that idea in your head, or do you think it was more like an evolution over time of just pursuing physical strength?
I've always been interested in all these aspects that I speak about, and I've always related uh, personal development to being a holistic approach, a holistic thing. So, as I was developing my body, I became interested in reading more about developing my body. And so, for the very first time in my life, I became interested in studying. And as I began developing my body through study, I the deeper questions came into my mind. And so I got interested in philosophy and religion. This was back in high school. So when I began speaking with people on YouTube about fitness, I knew that the two were completely linked. And it wasn't very long before I started speaking about, the whole aspect or the holistic aspect, the holy aspect of becoming the strongest version of ourselves.
Hmm. Yeah, and I really like you've always been saying this, become the strongest version of yourself. And that somehow really resonated with me early on as well. Although I don't think I was really into reading or anything like that when I started. But what I found, and even the people that I coach, is people who are trying to improve their lives, oftentimes just improving your physical, either strength levels or just improving physically leads to other things pretty much automatically. And
Yeah,
yeah, and I also think I've also seen that if you don't, if you're physically unfit, then it's also extremely, it's pretty much impossible to also be like mentally, there in terms of your development or getting better. And physically, I feel it's actually easier to get started than anything else. Like anyone can go to the gym, but the other aspects actually take a lot more work in my experience. But well, I don't know what your experience has been in that field.
I agree with you. I
Hmm.
started my journey into self exploration through fitness, through
Hmm.
lifting.
Hmm. And when did you first start lifting?
I was 14 years old.
Okay, so it's and was it for sports?
Yes, my uncle started training my brother and I when we were very young. We were 4 years old. He was into martial arts at the time, and
Hmm.
he just a lot of body weight movements and stuff.
Hmm.
It wasn't until I was in high school and I started playing football that I wanted to gain some muscle and some size so that I could play football. That he came back into our lives, and at the time he became a bodybuilder. So he started teaching us how to lift.
Wow, that's awesome. And
Mhm.
and even when it comes to lifting, you've tried. a few different things, right? You've done sports, you've done strongman, have you
Mhm.
done powerlifting as well?
I never competed in powerlifting, but I
Okay.
lived like a powerlifter for sure for many, many, many years.
And for a while you were also doing like bodybuilding style training, right?
Yeah, I probably did less bodybuilding than the other forms, but this year I decided that I wanted to give body transformation shaping. I never really was into body shaping. It was always performance and strength for me.
Right.
Uh, and so I began the year on my journey of physical transformation on the aesthetic front.
Mm-hmm.
And I made a bunch of mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of things I didn't know. But at this point now, I'm hitting a pretty good stride, and I'm on track to being my most aesthetic, at least in my opinion, by my 40th birthday in April.
That's awesome.
Thank
That's awesome. And I feel like what I've seen even with my own body is that when I tried to focus on the actual body and actual muscles, then I never got any real results. But
you.
when I focused on the performance aspect of it, like are my numbers improving? Is my strength going up? The the body is just a reflection of that. So
Yeah,
and it's almost like life, don't you think that people are so fixated on the end goal, but if they just focus on the process, the end goal will come as a result of it.
yeah, I agree with you.
100%. So if if I ask you, w- in your opinion, how do you define a strong person?
Well, I'd be very plain about it and say that it begins with the body as well.
Mhm.
I like to think of things in a holistic way, but I also believe that what you are speaks louder than what you say, and what you are is very evident by what you look like and what you can do. What can you do?
Mhm.
If your posture is horrible and you're frail and weak, you're not a strong person. The definition of strength is to overcome resistance. So when we look at it in its most fundamental way, to overcome resistance means to overcome physical resistance.
Mhm.
But then when it starts going deeper, it's overcoming the resistance in our soul and in our minds. So your ability to push on when things are difficult, overcome that resistance, your ability to overcome negative thoughts and demonic ideas, things that keep you small and keep you weak, being able to overcome other people's judgments or other people's, uh, the way others may press their ideas and their opinions and force on you. So anytime we're overcoming resistance, be it internal resistance or external resistance, we're being strong. But it's
Mhm.
got to be both.
100%. And in fact, have you read this book called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield?
Yeah, wonderful book.
Yeah, and it talks about the daily resistance, right, which mostly comes from within. And
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of people, including myself, have to every single day, deal with the internal resistance when it comes to doing anything. So
Hmm.
it's an ongoing battle, and I can definitely relate it to strength training because people ask me, I don't feel like going to the gym today,
Hmm.
for whatever reason I don't feel like it.
Yep.
And part of overcoming resistance is to it's okay to feel something, but if you want to do it, you got to do it anyway. And
Hmm.
anytime I find myself like procrastinating on something, I don't feel like doing something, I still try. I mean, I'm not perfect, but I try to do it anyway. And I always think of it as strength training. Everything is strength training for me. Everything is, you put in the reps and sets, and get stronger over time. So it's
Yeah.
that's why I'm a big believer of strength. And fortunately, I found resources like yourself early on in my journey that
Hmm.
led me to this path of strength. And I'm nowhere near where I need to be. um, and then uh, if I ask you to, who's the first person that comes to your mind when you think of a strong person?
Oh, well, I think of my parents and my uncle, and my grandparents, and the challenges that they went through to come to America and to be Americans, and then to raise their children. They all had a lot of adversity stacked against them. The odds were stacked against them.
Mhm.
And I'm really proud to, be a first generation American, but also too to come from parents that that chose to go through the challenge of coming here and then assimilate and then to become American. A lot of people,
Mhm.
they'll come here, they want to come here, but they don't want to work hard and they don't want to contribute and they don't want to assimilate. So I think of the strength of my ancestors.
Mhm. Yeah, 100%. And the kind of adversity they had to deal with, like we don't have anything compared to that.
Hmm.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, even like some of my relatives when they first came to America, they came all the way from India to here on boat, so many months. They didn't even have like proper planes back then. And I find it funny that people these days complain about not having Wi-Fi on the plane. So yeah, just it puts, yeah, it's for sure. When you look up to these people, it puts things into perspective for sure.
Hmm. And they're physically strong too. They
Oh
come from
yeah.
very good stock, good genetics.
Mm-hmm.
So they're very strong people.
Yeah, and also like physical labor, hard work. They didn't
Yes.
they didn't need to go to the gym. They had to put in the work every day. In fact,
Yeah.
they've done studies where they found that this our generation is they've done studies in terms of grip strength, and even the grip strength has gone down with
Yeah.
each generation. People are just getting weaker,
Hmm.
which is pretty. It is pretty concerning, to be honest. I find, especially in developed countries, that people are actually becoming weaker, not just physically, but just becoming soft. Like
Yeah.
complaining about the smallest things, and because they've never seen any sort of adversity in their lives.
Hmm.
And I'm not saying that I've seen like any major adversity, because I come from a good background. I grew up in a different country, so I've seen a different side of the world.
Hmm.
But and I'm fortunate that I've done that. But in your observation, like what have you seen in the younger generation?
Well, I think that they say that, there's a great saying that, strong men create great times and great times create weak men. And then
Mhm.
weak men create bad times. And so I
Mhm.
think that's just sort of a normal cycle of things. And we live in great times, so great times create weak men.
Yeah.
And so I think that it's just a part of the cycle. I'm not nearly as alpha as my dad was. And when I hear stories about my grandfather and my great grandfather, I'm like, I heard that my great grandfather was used to wrestle bulls. I'm like,
Wow.
wow. I mean, here I am thinking I'm a tough guy because I flip tires and shit. He would wrestle bulls. The rope, and then he catch the bull. They knew he was the guy in the town to catch the bulls. So here I am, okay, I was a pro strongman. I can't feel too bad that my son is not nearly as alpha as I am. So it was just kind of being weaned out of us.
Yeah, that's awesome. So you've been on this journey of strength for so long now, right? You started as a teenager.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
what what has there been a period of time where maybe you became a bit complacent, or you were not pursuing strength? Has there ever been a phase like that?
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm
Mm-hmm.
just coming out of that.
Mm-hmm.
From between the ages of 36 and 39, where I am right now, I've been I have a lot of different ways to describe it. Today, I say this was one of my left field years when I or my beta phase. But I look at it this way: I spent a lot of my life working really hard to prove myself and to
Mm-hmm.
accomplish things and to get ahead. And at age 36, I achieved quite a bit. My family, my business, my being a professional strongman, all the things, football. I did all these things,
Mm-hmm.
and I think my soul was just asking me to stop, slow down for a while, heal. I had some injuries I needed to heal. I
Mm-hmm.
realized that I had some soul healing to do. So I'm lifting again, but I took a long break,
Mm,
on and off for about 3 years.
mm. Yeah. So do you feel, how do you feel now that you're getting back into it?
I feel great. You
Yeah.
know, it's the same, but it's new. I'm different. I have different ambitions, and I go about things in a different way. Where in the past, I still have the same mindset that I used to have, but I don't beat myself up physically as much as I used to. I can go really hard. I
Mm,
can be really hard on myself, and I would always push through the resistance. That's why I was so good at the things that I did.
mm,
But now my wisdom has brought me to a place where I honor my body a bit more, where maybe I'm not going to push through that transcendent rep. Maybe I'm not going to push that little extra.
mm.
Uh, and not to say that I regret doing it in the past, because if I was to do it, I'd do it all over again. But now I don't need to prove anything. I already know myself and what I'm capable of. I know my strength. And so it's better to save it for another day.
Yeah, and it's more about the long-term progress than the everyday progress.
Right, 100%.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that's awesome. So
Hmm.
if most of my audience is typically younger people, probably in their early 20s or so, and maybe they're at a point in their lives where they're definitely not where they want to be in terms of uh, let's say even like physical shape. They want to be better. They want to get strong, build muscle. They want to get leaner. How would you recommend them starting? Like, what would be the first step they need to take to get started on this journey?
Well, it depends on the person, but if you're talking about being able to overcome resistance, literally pressing iron,
Mm,
I invite people to start where I start, which is with a 5x5 lifting program.
mm,
Just taking the basic lifts, press, pull, push,
mm,
and you want to have that frequency of hitting all those moves multiple times a week, 3 times a week at minimum, and then keeping I like to call it a hybrid model of volume. So 5 sets of five is a pretty good start there.
for sure, yeah. It's just the basics that have been proven to work over and over again.
Yeah.
And but at the same time, do you find that a person needs to have a certain kind of personality to be able to do these programs, especially for a long time? Because oftentimes I've found that people get bored of these programs, just doing the same movements again and again, and they just try to either change things up or just change the programs themselves.
hmm
Uh, how would you recommend like dealing with those people? Like how can they get results, or is it even possible for them to just stick to the same program, or do they just have a different personality and it's not for them?
Well, it's hard to be motivated if you're not getting any results.
Hmm.
And when it comes to strength, there are a few variables that would create a situation where you wouldn't get any results.
Hmm.
One of which is a lot of people skip workouts. Getting stronger requires frequency. You can't, if it's a 3-day-a-week program, 2 days isn't good enough. And I confront a lot of people that are like, well, I'm not getting any results. And I look and I'm like, but you're not doing the program.
That's
So
right.
when you follow the program, follow the program. It sounds so simple, but it's shocking how many people expect to get something but don't put everything in.
Mm,
The other thing is, of course, during the workout, how much effort are you giving? Are you really challenging yourself, or are you holding back? Uh, I still, even to this day, have the attitude that each workout's got to be better than the last. I like working with density. So it either means I'm getting more work in a shorter period of time, or I'm creating higher intensities during that time. So it's always something. I'm always getting a little bit better
mhm,
during every workout. And then what a lot of people forget is that you don't grow stronger during your workout. You grow stronger those other 23 hours a day. So
mhm,
taking very good care of yourself, meaning, are you getting enough sleep? That's usually one place where most people fail. Are
mhm.
you getting enough sleep? Are your rhythms on point? And are you putting good food in your body as opposed to, eating junk food and a lot of sugar, which is a lot of times what people do.
Right.
Beyond that, keeping your stress levels low is going to be super important.
Hmm. Yeah, that I 100% agree with that. These are the basics, the eat, sleep, train, and repeat.
Hmm.
But people look for the other things that don't really make a difference, like what supplements should I use,
Hmm.
or stuff like that. And
Hmm.
I know you've been teaching the basics pretty much ever since day one, and people still don't get it.
Hmm.
Because I remember, I probably the first video I saw of yours was I think it was called "The Truth About Anabolic Steroids"
Hmm.
back in the day, and I think it has over many million views now. But you were basically talking about how you can maximize your own hormones with getting enough sleep, eating a lot of good food, stuff like that. And people still don't seem to get it. And, I get questions every day. This guy was asking me, uh, like, I use glutamine and I use BCAs and I use this supplement and pre-workout, but then I'm not getting any results. And I'm like, but how's your sleep?
Hmm. Right, right, right.
Yeah, so it's like putting the cart before the horse almost.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think that's a wonderful message. Just find a solid training program that's been proven to work, like a
Hmm.
5x5. Get
Yeah.
enough sleep, get enough food, and you're pretty much gonna be better than almost everyone out there.
Hmm.
But one thing I would add is, I think even what you've done is uh, uh, you've created such a strong community of people, not just at your gym but also online now. Because I feel like when you surround yourself with people who are better than you, that's like the best shortcut to success.
Hmm.
And what in my experience, what I found was I used to train at a commercial gym back in the day, and I thought I was pretty strong. I was like squatting like two plates or whatever for like 5 reps, and I thought I was pretty strong because no one at that gym was squatting, at least not to depth. And then one day, do you know who Dan Green is?
I think I know. Did he used to write books?
I'm not sure, but he's very big. He's a very big name in powerlifting. He holds a lot of world records,
Mm,
and
okay.
so he one day I found out that he's having a free seminar at his gym. He just opened a brand new gym called
Hmm.
Boss Barbell here in Mountain View, California. So and it was like a powerlifting seminar, and I was just learning about powerlifting, but I kind of knew of him because he's one of those powerlifters that actually looks like a bodybuilder. Like he has a really impressive physique, and he's always had that. So I thought, I should. It's a free seminar. I should check it out. And as soon as I went for that, I just signed up on the spot because I was like, this is where I need to be.
Yeah.
Be- because I was training at commercial gyms and they were complaining about making too much noise on the deadlifts.
Oh,
And I'm like, there's no way I can become the strongest version of myself at a place like this. Where
no.
random people come up to you and tell you to keep it quiet. And when I remember when I first started at that gym, like I was squatting like what, two plates at a commercial gym, but at Boss Barbell even some of the girls were squatting like three plates. And so I was pretty much the weakest guy there. And but instead of feeling demotivated by it, I was so inspired by it that I'm like, I'm at the right
Yeah.
place. And every single day I was like going in there and pushing myself. And eventually, like right now, I'm on my way to squatting four plates at a body weight of like 150 something. So I'm pretty stoked for that.
Congrats, man. Yeah.
So I think an environment matters, and these days I would recommend that even if you can go to like a CrossFit gym. I
Hmm.
know people like to hate on CrossFit, but it's way better than going to a commercial gym, because at least that you have that environment where people are working hard and putting in the work.
Oh,
You
yeah, I
know,
agree.
100%. So, and you also said that you've always been reading a lot of books for a long time. What are like some of the top, let's say, two or three books that you think everyone should read?
Oh, well, I don't know what everyone should read.
Mhm.
but I know what I like to read.
Sure.
And so my favorite books are books that are based on religion and philosophy. Like I love the work of Ralph Waldo Emerson, and his works have been tremendous in my life.
Mhm.
Uh, I recently have been attracted to Orthodox Christianity.
Mhm.
I've gone in and out with lots of different religion. I just, I'm attracted to it. So I've been reading some of those books written by like the monks, the old monks back in ancient, like old Greek, and I'm really enjoying those. Um, I would say that a contemporary author that I read almost every one of his books is Robert Greene, who's written Mastery and 48 Laws of Power. And now he has a really good one called The Laws of Human Nature.
Mhm.
And I really enjoy reading his work. He's got one with 50 Cent called The 50th Law.
Mhm.
I really enjoyed that. And then I would also add the work of Robert Moore, who wrote
Mhm.
King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. He was a neo-Jungian. So you'll see that it's a lot of like psychology, philosophy, religious, spiritual stuff that I enjoy reading.
Mhm. Yeah, that's awesome. I've actually never read any of those, but I've heard of most of them, especially the Robert Greene books, and I've been meaning to read them. But
Yeah.
just one thing that I personally struggle with, and I wanted to ask you about this, was because you've always been out there. You put yourself out there on social media and YouTube, and it seems like you're not afraid to speak speak your truth, if you want to call it that,
Hmm.
right? You if you have an opinion, then you're not afraid of judgment of other people. And what I and a lot of people suffer from is like we don't speak our truth. We just keep it inside, and because we feel like we don't want to offend someone. And this is not just on social media, just like, let's say, dealing with family or friends. If even if someone's crossing your boundaries, you don't even speak up. And I think it's a big problem. And I just recently read this book called No More Mr. Nice Guy.
Yeah, very good book.
Yeah, and that was like pretty eye-opening. So
Hmm.
my question is, were you always like this, or did someone teach you to always speak your truth or stuff like that? Did you read it somewhere?
My father is like this, and my great aunt that lived with us is like this. It's in my DNA. When I was a kid, I used to get into a lot of trouble. A lot of the other kids didn't like me. I would get ostracized sometimes because Elliott is mean, or Elliott makes us uncomfortable. And so, to be completely honest, it's been my natural way. But there have been seasons in my life where I've been ashamed of how I am, and I'm upset. Why can't I be more of a nice guy? It says no more Mr. Nice Guy. Well, I wanted to be no more Mr. Tough Guy. I wanted to be a nice guy, and there have been times where I've dimmed my light and not spoken my truth. And in retrospect, I realized how wrong it was. Maybe I have more friends that way, or maybe more people like me or accept me that way, but I'm lying to myself and lying to the world, and I'm doing a disservice to the creator who made me this way. So I have no choice but to speak up and be a loudmouth and to say what's on my mind.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's good to know. So, yeah, before we end this interview, I know we're short on time. What is something you're working on right now? What's new and exciting for you?
Well, one thing that's been rolling for the past few years, which is doing really well, is something called Grounding Camp, which is
Mhm.
my contribution to the grave need that men have in this day, which is for a form of initiation, a form of letting go of our feminized beta ways that the world has conditioned into us, and fellowshipping with one another and coming back together. I like to say moving, which is a term that I learned from Robert Moore, and what our ancestors understood about the necessity for developing mature men, which we've got to move away from the world of the mother and its own move towards the world of the father. And the world of the Father is the masculine world, it's the world of our earthly fathers, but also the world of our heavenly fathers, our true pattern. So grounding camp is a way for me to sort of share those ideas and create a forum for us to do that. And I'm also back to coaching. I took many years off from coaching, and I'm back coaching now. And I'm looking specifically to work with men who are overweight. You know, I think that's the first place we've got to begin. Like you said, if we're going to be anything of our mental and spiritual and emotional selves in the strongest way, we got to start with the physical. And I agree with you.
It's awesome. Yeah, I would love to attend one of those events one day. And I definitely will. I'll make that effort. Yeah,
Great. It would be wonderful to have you.
awesome. So, Elliot, I really want to thank you for taking the time today. I know you're a busy person, but it was great meeting you in Florida like a couple weeks back. You know, we had a short conversation, but it was just awesome, and it's very kind of you to take the time again to speak to me and my audience today. So,
My
really
pleasure.
want to thank you for that.
You got it, bro.
All right, everyone. I hope you guys enjoyed this interview. Go out there and become the strongest version of yourself.